many aspects that are fighting with each other to take over the wheel. So they're struggling, you know, like a tug of war. Exactly. They're not struggling, but it's a tug of war between all of your aspects. And it only feels like a tug of war that they're not all playing to the same tune and not all pulling in the same direction, because you're not integrated yet. You're not reintegrated yet, okay? And what is coming up now in this time is where the, you know, like the shadow is the darkest before dawn, that edge surfing, that where the discrepancy, the difference really shows itself now. So what is in harmony with your soul, all right, with your awakened soul, with the soul, because you are soul. Even your body is soul. Yes, even the physical body is soul. The only thing that's not soul is is when you believe you are something else than soul, other than soul, and that's all of the soul consciousness that is asleep in the egoic mind, that you are not conscious of. And that's where the tug of war is happening, between the egoic mind aspects of you that have been seemingly, apparently, in the senses, in the experience, separated, disintegrated, not disintegrated, what is it, fragmented, not fractalized. That's different. That's remaining whole. When a fractal is born, a fractal is whole within itself, but a fragment isn't. But the fragment within those aspects, those fragments within the egoic mind, they act as if they were whole unto themselves, except they don't act according to the whole, according to the one, the raw. They act according to their own conditioning. And so even amongst each other, even though the overall agenda of the egoic mind is the same, is to keep that separation going and keep that identity going, that separate identity going amongst each other, the aspects in the egoic mind, they're also not harmonious. They're just looking out each for themselves, apparently, because that identity is of course an illusion. It's an illusory identity. They are you know, they are who you really are. Yeah. Okay. So you've been today, again, this is, you know, patterns, sine waves, patterns. Sine waves are spirals, you know, how life moves and spirals, and the sine wave is the spiral, you know, going up and down, or, you know, like this or like that, like this or like that, doesn't matter. That's just the perspective where you see it from, but it goes around. And so you can say up and down when you like take a cross section of it. And you find yourself once again in that very what is it? Familiar, in that familiar place where you feel like you want to you know, cuddle up and hide and get cozy. You know, it's like your inner child that is feeling unsafe, that is feeling uprooted, that is it's wanting its grounding, it's wanting its you know, it's reaching out for its certain foods, you know, the quick satisfaction foods, the ones that are not the best for the health. And so that's sugar and salt. There's a lot of sugar and a lot of salt. Yeah. crisps and sweets, and yeah, and mm, mm. And so we were saying why, and we were asking why is this happening again? What is it? Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I want to go and hide in a hole today? And there's just, I feel uncozy. I feel ungrounded. I feel, but not in a ungrounded in an emotional way somehow. And this, like it's the inner child. And so what we said was, this is unfamiliar territory because you're getting close to the breakthrough. Now I'm channeling the breakthrough that you've been secretly desiring. We're being facetious with secretly, but there's a reason why we say it that way. So it's not really going to come through as a breakthrough, but what it is the end of a cycle. There are smaller cycles, and there are, within bigger cycles, and ever bigger and bigger and bigger cycles, as you know, the babushka dolls. And this is happening, of course, as you know, universally. There is even a universal cycle. Do we know if it already ended, is approaching its end, or is ending? That we don't know. But what we do know is that this is not only, the awakening, the ascension, this is not only which within itself is huge, the precession of the equinoxes as one of those cycles, 2692, 94, or something like that, years around that. No, there are greater cycles that are also ending all the way up to the universal level. That is okay. So, and it's the same in the individual. And so for you are at this, you are approaching the precipice of you're used to now, within the image that you were given by your soul through a medium, you are used to staying, always going back. Oh, you start out, the vision starts out in prison, and then you unite with your higher self in prison. Then the bars come down. Then you step out of the mountain. Then you meet with your spirit guide, and together you go down under the earth, into the dungeons, and free a bunch of people there. And there are many, many layers to that, many levels. And you go down with the elevator all the way to the bottom, where they are where it's like they're just in sarcophaguses. They were in sarcophaguses. And by your presence, your light coming there, you awaken them. And this was the image, and there was a lot more to it, but this was the basic image. Yes, and then after they're all awakened, you come back out, and you find yourself. First, there was a little trickling creek, and you had gathered some blackness in your hand from this. Awakening, and like a detox, you could say. And you wash it in the little creek, you wash that off, and then come the white waters of the grace of God. That's the grace of God. And then you're standing in that stream that are the white waters now. It's a huge river in full throttle, and this was the image for the currents now all running now it's all the currents are online and they're all reintegrated, because when the currents are reintegrated and not as we always talk about, as you always talk about, split off, the light currents split off through the split person, not personality, but split off, not in unity consciousness. So it's this aspect that feels like it's separate and this aspect that feels like it's separate. It's coming through the egoic mind. Those are the split off currents, yeah? So when the recognition of that one self comes and the currents, they come back, then of course it flows faster. Yes, the stream flows faster and in the same direction. So that's not the tug of war anymore, yeah? And you've always been used to going down, finding yourself, in these sine waves, in these spirals, finding yourself back in prison again. And that's when you're way down at the bottom. And rattling at the bars again. That's when you're way down at the bottom. It used to be depression. No, that doesn't happen anymore because you've already cleared up so much and you can't go that low anymore. Thinking about, this is for the recording, thinking about the Hawkins scale of consciousness, that emotions and a level of consciousness, it's all, thoughts and emotions, they have frequencies. So depression is the lowest frequency. You can't go that low anymore. Yeah, because you've reintegrated those to that degree. Yeah, and however, you still go down, to it's just a different level, and you still go down because you still have aspects that are at that frequency within you that you haven't brought back home yet. You're used to breaking out, going back up in frequency, hope, and then further than that, and going to a certain height, but then going back down in the dungeons, right, to free more aspects. But when you're freeing those aspects, you're not back in prison yet. So those are two different things. You're not back in prison yet, even though. So here's the thing. You go down and you're with your spirit guide. So that's also, it's like your spirit guide is an aspect of your higher self. You can also call that your higher self, because your higher self is not one person. Even though there is that higher self also that is your vertical self, but your higher self is also your horizontal self, all the other fractals that are part of your soul. So and now we're not sure if the spirit guide necessarily is of the same soul family. However, the way that the spirit guide comes through and communicates with you, you are so in tune with each other that the spirit guide is completely there for you, only for you, out of unconditional love, to guide your soul. So whether it is or not, we just haven't gotten there in the clarity of the rational understanding yet, and it doesn't matter, because the way it comes through the spirit guide, it feels exactly like your higher self is talking to you, right? Because the spirit guide is not there to be like detected, that you can feel, oh, this is my spirit guide. Oh, this is an ascended master from my somewhere in my upline, that I'm a fractal from. Oh, this is my higher self from the level of the avatar or from the level of the monad, and it's on this and this branch. No, it's not about detecting that. It's about, it comes in as simply as a higher consciousness that you are a fractal of, a part of. It is your higher consciousness. Just like a leaf on a tree getting currents consciousness from somewhere a greater, like the greater branch down below, and it's getting it from the whole branch or from the trunk. You know, it's not separate from that. Yeah. Okay. What feels different and why you are feeling, even though it's familiar to you that you're feeling this disruptiveness, you know, this feeling of insecurity and wanting to stay with bed with sweets at crisps and tea and read a book or watch a cozy movie, or, you know, just to feel that safety to do whatever it is that suggests that it brings something familiar to your body and to your to your inner child that feels safe. And this time what we told you is, with the cycles, we told you that why you're feeling this way is because there is that cycle, right? There is that cycle within the spiral where when you're done in the dungeons freeing your aspects, you don't go back up with your spirit guide and then continue into finding yourself, you know, the detox, the physical detox of that black goo coming out of your hands, and you're washing it into the creek. You feel bad that you're washing it into the little creek because now the creek is getting black and you don't want to poison the creek. But then the white waters, the grace of God comes. So it's like the currents are getting so strong within you that the poisons within you, the toxins within you, it's nothing, you know, it's nothing to your greater being. When you are integrated to a certain degree, then to that level, you have much more space, you have much more capacity, much more light, and the light just turns it. It changes a toxin. It turns it into benign. You know, it's like it's such a fast spin. It can just. It's like combustion almost. It's like it combusts. It's like, yeah, it loses its power also because the spin rate is faster. So the oscillation rate of your atoms are faster, and you are then more lighter. Your body is more lighter, and this has nothing to do with whether you have eaten just raw foods or not, even though that definitely supports and speeds up the process and helps you tune into that more and better, so that there's not this inertia and not this like dragging yourself by the hair or dragging your feet in the sand. You know, it's not yeah, that definitely is an accelerator for sure. However, it's also not that your spiritual, when you're ready, you're ready. When you do it in your consciousness, when on the level of your consciousness, you are making strides, you are making development, you are recognizing, opening, progressing, yes, then that will make up for the physical. You know, of course, if you have both, all the better. Yeah. And of course also when you eat the lighter foods, it will also help you to have more easier access to the lighter mind also. Yes, but that doesn't mean that, you know, when you're mature, when you're ready, it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen anyways. And that's why you also often feel so sick when you vibrate so high, because then you detox very fast. Yeah. Okay. With the cycles, that what is happening now. So usually you would, the cycles were that you would not find yourself in the white waters, actually ever, but that you head back, that you find yourself at some point, like it's like a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that. You detox it. You detox in the water, but there's still not that current is still not white waters. So you find yourself through the detox. We'll get into that in a moment, and it's uncozy. That lid will be opened from the outside, and they also have to surrender. It brings them to this surrender of the fears that will bring up. Yeah. Yeah, let's not go there. Mummies found in sarcophaguses, whether those were initiates that didn't make it out because something happened. Yeah, no, let's not go there. But you know that it is one of your panics to be in a small space. And yeah, okay, locked in a small space. Okay. The other thing is that you were taught in your culture that, this is in the beginning, when you didn't know better yet, there was a slight, from school, a slight buying into, a sarcophagus equals coffin. Yeah, because that's how it was told. Sarcophagus equals coffin. Because there are also coffins that look a lot like sarcophaguses. Okay. So, and didn't we say before? We said before, it's about life or death, right? It's about life or death. What does that mean? And then we said, whether you are going to, whether this body is going to die and then you ascend the next body, you're still on the ascension cycle, but with the next body, which would mean you're catching the train later, catching a later wave. Or are you taking this body? And you said, well, I know. I know that I'm taking this body. Yes, we said, but not all of your aspects know that. There are still aspects within you that are programmed into into believing that they're going to get old. This body's going to get old and die the way it has seen it before, like around 100 or something. And actually, you don't even want to get that old if it were that, because the body really starts to deteriorate, and you don't want to have that kind of an experience. You'd rather than really go. Keep talking, yeah. What you said to me, and then when I said we have to record it. We said that you've never come really to the other side so far. In those cycles, you've always found yourself at the end of the liberation cycles, which are the liberation cycles are the reawakening cycles, which are your liberating your inverted currents, your inner aspects, and this is showing itself to you in the triggered emotions, and then sitting there with the triggered emotion, with that emotion is sitting with, just like you did on the different levels with the aspects of yourself, being there and just being very present with all aspects and just loving all aspects. And that is what wakes them up and what liberates them. And the liberation is also that they know, okay, now they're coming out of that level, you know, underground, out of their dumb, you know, so to speak. Yeah. And in the times when you were liberating, when you were triggered and present, you were oftentimes got caught. You know, it was sticky. You actually got caught and then identified yourself. So you weren't able to fully hold space, but more of you was now identifying with that aspect, and therefore you found yourself back in prison. If it was strong enough, you found yourself back in prison, and then you start another cycle. And this is up and down, and this is also the bipolarity. This is what bipolarity is, when people are bipolar like you have been diagnosed. And you have been feeling a sense of anxiety today. That's that unsafety of the inner child. And we told you it's because you are on the precipice of moving beyond what you are familiar with, and stepping into, you know, a greater self, getting to know a greater self, stepping into that grace of God, that you know, when a lot of currents come online and there's a lot of power there. So you're afraid of your power. You're afraid of that which you always wanted. But what you always wanted also means when you step into that power, or when that power comes back online, because here's the thing. First, it happens gradually through every cycle that repeats. You go up and down, and through every up and down, or back and forth, whatever, every time you liberate a little bit more of yourself, and liberate also means at the same time you reintegrate it. And so that means that your soul current becomes stronger, which these are many different currents also. It still has the different colors and geometry and identities, well, like personality traits, yeah, you still have that. Also from your soul and from your DNA, from the ancestry line. So it's all there. But the liberated ones are in harmony with each other. There's no tug of war, and they play together like a symphony orchestra. So you have all these different tunes, all these different rhythms within the symphony, but they all play within the great rhythm, within one to like the what is it called, the conductor, yeah, to one piece, you know, to one song. So now you've reached a level where there is so much playing in your soul song of you, so many currents running into that mainstream of who you are, that your true self, that you're running, not split off anymore. And what we said was, and this is when you said let's record it, because you didn't understand that part, so let's say that again. So what we said was they haven't collapsed into the singularity. Now, collapsing into the singularity, which means the singularity in your heart, which is unconditional love, which is holding that neutral space. It is unconditional acceptance. So more than acceptance, it is unconditional love, but in it is this open, this gratitude, this acceptance, this non-judgment, you know. And that's where they collapse into, but the collapse of them doesn't mean that they lose their color or their individuality. Just like, you know, what they collapse to is, let's stay with the image of the orchestra. So before, let's say the clarinet was playing completely out of tune, completely its own thing. And when it collapses into the singularity, it collapses into that symphony that is being conducted, written, you know, composed, all of it by your soul. And then further on, you know, your individual soul, your twin soul, your monad oversoul, then your avatar oversoul, your rishi oversoul, and then we come to God. Then we come to the Godhead on level 12th dimension. Yeah. So on all those levels, there's still going to be also this split off. There's still going to be a level of duality on all the dimensions, with more to gather forth, more to integrate, yes? But on this lowest level, when harmony is achieved, and that's like a storm gathering, you know? So it gathers momentum. It gathers more and more momentum, which means that it is easier and easier for you to be present with when the lower aspects of you that are still asleep to themselves, that identity is triggered, to not fall into that identity and re-identify, but to be present with it, and for it to much quicker to dissolve and recognize itself as a part of the one. That doesn't mean it loses its, it will lose its false identity, but it doesn't mean that it dies. It means it self-recognizes that as what it truly is, and thereby, even though it then dissolves into the whole as one with the whole, it doesn't lose its color. So then the clarinet plays in the orchestra. It doesn't mean it loses being a clarinet, but it does change its tune and rhythm, and it changes its consciousness. That's, you know, that's the major thing. It changes its consciousness. And that is what they call the death of the ego. Now, for the ego, that was, you know, which is a program. It's not even anything real. It's a program that had this effect on the clarinet, on the soul aspect that didn't know itself. That effect falls away and the true knowing comes instead. So the only thing that dies is the illusion of being what you are not. But this still feels unsettling to the aspect that hasn't woken up yet, you know, which we call the ego, but it really is the soul that is still in the illusion of the ego. Yeah, and that's what you're feeling. That's that anxiety. So, when a certain storm, a certain momentum has gathered, you know what happens. You've seen it many times depicted. There's a certain, there's this moment, like a moment of no return, and when all the waves, when that which is left goes very quickly. That's that quantum leap moment in a way, because that is when enough, you know, a saturation point has been reached of collapsing into that singularity, that the rest, you know, that what is left has so little power towards what has reunited, what has reintegrated, that the rest goes very fast. And that is that quantum leap. That is that acceleration point. Yeah. Also, it's the same when you see a spaceship. You've seen it in movies, when the rings start to, you know, and that's also, they're making waves, they're making momentum of frequency. And when a certain momentum is reached, it goes so fast and then it disappears. Yeah. It's always like that. It's always like that in the portals. Yeah. And this is what is causing your anxiety and your feeling, because you're about to step into an unfamiliar place within yourself, even though it's what you wanted, you know. Still, it makes you uncomfortable in a way, because it will change your life. Also, you are not, as we said before, you are not going to continue in the same fashion as you have, which is another thing that you absolutely are looking forward to and are welcoming and have been wishing for, of course. At the same time, you know, there are aspects of you, the inner child, and other aspects that are more like a dog. They don't like change. They don't like it. Because also this change is going to mean more, a very big change, you know, in your life. So you have to say goodbye to certain things, you know, when you are at a new level of power, a new level of currents running through you. It's a new game, you know, a new level of playing. And you still have aspects that are in the ego, and they're scared of that. They're definitely scared of that. There's a part of you that doesn't believe it too. There's a part of you that says, that's just wishful thinking. I'm anxious because I'm anxious about not catching the train. I'm anxious about that I won't, perhaps, I will make the ascension. That, you know, that is a belief that is strong enough within you. But anyways, you already know, because you've gone there oftentimes enough with us, and you know now deeply enough that everyone ascends that has even an iota of potential to, that's going to be pulled up, and it's just in a different, in what speed, in what fashion, and so forth, Yeah. And the other ones never were, not meant to, and it's not part of their, it's not even what they want, and it's not part of their path. Yeah. So, but there's still the other aspects that are saying, okay, this is not about breaking through into the grace of God, into really now gathering that momentum to stepping into the next level of your evolution and of your power and of your embodying your soul and of awakening. But the anxiety is about you just not having it in you to make it, and to make it as fast as you thought you could, or make it as high as you thought you could, and that turns out to be the illusion and is wishful thinking, and that your life is going to continue in this cycle of always falling back into being back in prison, all the way until the body dies of old age, just the regular way, the way you've seen it growing up so far. And that this turns out to be the illusion and the wishful thinking, that which we have just, the ascension part. And then you will ascend then later, taking a next body, doing another recycle, going way slower. But that would also mean you're at a level of suffering still, and that level of suffering is it's like been on the edge, even though it was gradually always has been, now it's better than ever, than you can remember, but in terms of emotional, psychological suffering, the suffering of the drama of life, you're now more free than you can ever remember being, because the only time you might have felt as free was not conscious. It wasn't a conscious feeling of freedom. These were moments within your childhood, moments of carefreeness where it hadn't yet so taken a hold of you, everything that was going on around you, and what was going to come, what had already established, these were moments, but that's why they weren't complete, because they were already within a framework where you were not free. And the time maybe where you did feel free, you don't remember. That was, if that even was, that must have been before a toddler or something, because otherwise there were already these restraints and fears, and they were very early placed. I mean, after 3 days losing your mom and everything, contact to your whole family after 3 days of birth, and then put behind glass with nobody that you knew for 6 weeks, being what is it called, separated from your mom, and not even getting her milk, so nothing familiar around you. After 3 days, you were only 3 days old, and being driven away, and 3 days after birth in an ambulance, and there was no one from your family, away to another hospital, and there was no one near. So of course you don't remember this, but that must have had its that it had its impact. Yes. So now you are in a place in your life where you are consciously feeling more free and having liberated more aspects of yourself than ever before. So that also means feeling more empowered than you can say than ever before. And yet, at the same time, it's that those two sides, yeah. This one side that is feeling this and is realizing, well, how does this make sense? And we're telling you that it's because a greater cycle where there are a lot of these revolutions of the sine wave, of the spiral, that have come to conclusion where you're ready to step into a bigger game. Because you have more power, you have now more currents running, right? And you have gained more of your wherewithal, of your awareness of who you are, even though there's no knowing about where did your soul come from, none of that. It's not that kind of information about who you are, even though that will trickle in time as well. Now all you have is hints and notions, for sure, and then your memories that come in the lucid dreams, in the lucid state, and the visions that we've been giving you, yes, but it's not established yet. It's not anchored in yet as a full knowing. It's not this, yes, I know, now I remember, it's like it deep inside of you. That hasn't happened yet. But when we say you have remembered yourself, it is in the way you feel, and it is your wisdom, and it is this that is coming through. It's the currents that you're running. That can come through now. It's the harmony that you've regained in yourself. And then this is falling also into the singularity, is when there's this huge silence that is just opening up, and this peace that is opening up from the center of you into all of your body and your mind. And you know that this is truth. This silence is truth. Truth speaking. And the words resonating in this silence. You know that they resonate with truth, so they are speaking your truth and truth to you. so this feeling of uncomfortable anxiety, it also feels more heightened. The aspects that don't believe that yet and that still think that's the illusion. And then there's that tug of war going on in these times, you know, where you're standing now. And so it's also perfectly, you know, part of that is that you will run also the old currents, that you will also see it as that's a possibility, you know, at least, because it's not about denying those aspects at all. Because if you deny the aspects that believe that are still in the egoic mind and believe from that perspective, from the separate self perspective, from the conditioned mind perspective, what the conditioning from, since you grew up, you know, who you are and what your life is, they believe in that, or more in that than in the truth. And that's why they're also so, you know, it's such a discrepancy there, you know, and that discrepancy is now at its height. Don't deny yourself, don't deny them, but when they show up, that's your gift. That's what you want. You want them to show up so that you can embrace them. And if they feel so uncomfortable, and if they want to stay in bed all day eating chips and chocolate, watching movies, it doesn't matter. Let them have it, you know. Go into them, really go into them, indulge them. That's what we say. We say indulge them. You know, and because we are not, that doesn't make us go away. We can't go away anymore. You know, once a part of you is awakened, that it can never fall asleep again, even though it may seem that way, but that it's not the part that has been liberated that falls back asleep. You know, it's not the part that came out of prison that finds itself back in there. It's one of those aspects in the dungeons that you then identify with, that you merge with. You merge with an aspect of you. It's that aspect that is then behind the wheel, that is giving the tune. That is, you know, because your focus is on it, because it's been triggered. And depending on the power it still has, it may still have that power to to be behind the wheel for a little bit, you know. But that doesn't mean that the aspect that is already come out and is liberated and is standing there, albeit with your spirit guide the whole time, or you can also say your higher self, you know, it really doesn't matter, by the creek. And even though the creek is not the white waters yet, it's still that's your flow. That's that flow that comes from source, that you're standing in the source flow. Doesn't matter if it's just a little creek still, but that's the truth. And once that is established, we know, once that aspect is awakened, in the beginning, when the aspects, when the soul currents that are still asleep to themselves through the egoic mind, when that's stronger, it can still overpower and out, what is it called, out silence or out crowd in the noise of it, the aspect of you that knows better, that's already standing in your truth, in your wisdom, and overpower that. But that's what has shifted now, you know. It's not that you can't go back anymore. So there's no more falling asleep. There is simply a like your by tuning into those aspects, you seeing it and you feeling it from that perspective, and maybe for and this is what is shortening and losing its power more and more and more, and has been, but there is, for a certain amount of time, for a certain amount of intensity, there is an identification with that happening. You get a little bit stuck, and that and then it's like a transference of consciousness, that your consciousness transfers and experiences itself again through that aspect that is still in the egoic mind. But that's very important. That's a very important part of this cycle, of this mechanism, if you so will, of this living anatomy, because that identification with, or maybe that's not the perfect way of saying it, but the slipping into the consciousness of the aspect that feels separate from yourself, yes, and sees it through that perspective, slipping into that consciousness fully, so fully taking that on, fully feeling that that's you, and you're back stuck in the prison again. And in the past, you would always fall back into depression, even if it was always going shorter and less, but still there were these moments or phases where you would feel that, and you would feel scared again, that you would never get out, that it would never ever change. You would always find yourself back in prison. And the old and familiar mechanism, conditioning of those same thoughts, don't kid yourself, it's never going to change, you're always going to come back here, don't kid yourself, you're not all that you believe you are, and really you're going to die, you're going to get old, your life will never be what you foresee or what you wish for, you're always going to be stuck here, so you might as well deal with it and face it, yes. Everything else that you believe is just wishful thinking. You're really a fraud. Yeah, that's not your league. You're completely not capable and not able, and so forth and so forth. You're nobody. You're really nobody who wants to be somebody. It's like the egoic mind will look at your truth and say that that's your egoic mind, that's your false self. That's what it does. It projects. But your life is about to change. Your life is about to change. And you're like, because of that, you have been in retrieving mode and in comforting mode, in the inner child is comforting itself mode. and so your egoic mind is going to say, see, all you do is you don't really get anything done. You just indulge. you indulge, and you're on the sofa and you're sleeping, and you're watching series and movies, and you're eating a lot of sweets and chips and whatnot, all your comfort foods, and That's who you really are. You're never going to amount to anything, because you're never going to get out of that addiction. So it calls that addiction. You're never going to get out of that self-sabotage. Never going to get out of the self-sabotage. Okay, just let that sink in for a moment. Why does that feel good when we speak the truth? Even when the truth is... Because we are shining a light on the egoic mind, on those aspects of you. And that is their truth. That is what a little portion of you is still running in its mind and believes. Even though it's very weak, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, I don't believe that. But it's still, as you notice, you're always coming back to that, because there's a little portion of you that's still, it's not conscious. It's not conscious of it. That's why it feels so good when we talk, when we speak it out. Because that's becoming conscious of it, and then you can feel, that's true, that's what it believes, and it doesn't even really know what it believes. It's just what it feels, and it's that resignation. I'm never gonna be anything anyways. I was fighting to get out of prison, but I always find myself back in prison, and so we just might as well face it. We may as well face the truth. And suck it up. It's an energy. It's the energy of also frustration, resignation, anger at life, anger at yourself, that you can't be better, that you're not good enough, and all of these things. Those are all the frequencies that are in there. Also all the regret and all the, where you can't forgive yourself and all, that's all in there. It's a full package. Yeah. Okay. Shall we leave it at that for now in the recording? Yes, okay. Beautiful. 108. 44!